Hi, welcome to this month's Elders Weather Update. In this video, we'll be taking a look at the El Niño and the positive Indian Ocean dipole that were recently declared by the Bureau of Meteorology, a deeper dive looking at what is El Niño and what is a positive Indian Ocean dipole, and we'll take a good look at how these climate drivers influence Australia's weather. You may have heard that both an El Niño and a positive Indian Ocean dipole were declared by the Bureau of Meteorology in late September. These two climate drivers will both have a strong influence on Australia's weather during the rest of this year and possibly into the start of next year as well. The last time we saw both an El Niño and a positive Indian Ocean dipole occurring at the same time was back in 2015. So what is El Niño? El Niño refers to a pattern of sea surface temperature anomalies in the tropical Pacific Ocean. It's part of what we call an El Niño Southern Oscillation, which can be in three different phases: El Niño, Neutral, or La Niña. El Niño is currently underway after being declared by the Bureau back on the 19th of September. Now this means that we've got warmer than average sea surface temperatures over the central and eastern equatorial Pacific Ocean and cooler than average temperatures on the western side of the tropical Pacific. And those changes in sea surface temperatures are causing changes in the overlying atmosphere. And typically under an El Niño, we see below average rainfall on the western side of the Pacific, including parts of Australia, and above average rainfall over central and eastern parts of the tropical Pacific Ocean. Now we can monitor the strength of El Niño by looking at the sea surface temperature anomalies inside this box over the central tropical Pacific Ocean, which is called the Niño 3.4 region. The graph on the left shows the Niño 3.4 index values over the past few years, and we can see at the moment it is clearly in an El Niño phase, and it's verging on a strong El Niño according to the US Climate Prediction Center thresholds. We are likely to see this hovering around that moderate to strong strength in the coming months, but I'll touch on that more in just a moment. First, let's have a look at what is an Indian Ocean dipole. Much like El Niño on the eastern side of Australia, an Indian Ocean dipole looks at sea surface temperature anomalies over the tropical Indian Ocean on the western side of Australia. A positive Indian Ocean dipole event occurs when you have cooler than average water off the coast of Indonesia and warmer than average water on the other side of the tropical Indian Ocean near the Horn of Africa. Those sea surface temperature patterns typically cause less rainfall on the eastern side of the Indian Ocean, including parts of Australia, but more rainfall in eastern parts of Africa. The positive Indian Ocean dipole that's currently underway was declared by the Bureau back on September the 19th as well. We can monitor the strength of the Indian Ocean dipole by looking at the sea surface temperature anomalies inside these two boxes on the eastern and western sides of the tropical Indian Ocean. The graph on the left shows that the Indian Ocean dipole has been gaining strength quite rapidly in recent weeks, and it's almost as strong as the event in 2019, and that was quite a significant positive Indian Ocean dipole event because it was the strongest on record according to the Bureau of Meteorology's database, and that underpinned the warmest and driest year on record for Australia. So this is something that we're watching quite closely to see how strong the Indian Ocean dipole gets in the next few weeks, because the stronger the Indian Ocean dipole is, the more likely we are to see the impacts occurring in Australia. So how do El Niño and a positive Indian Ocean dipole affect Australia's weather? Some of the typical El Niño impacts include below average rainfall over large areas of the country, which means a reduced chance of flooding, but an increased chance of drought. Daytime temperatures are often warmer than average for large parts of Australia during El Niño, and we also see an increased chance of more intense heat extremes, but we do see fewer heat waves in southern Australia. In contrast to those higher daytime temperatures, we often see an increased risk of overnight frost during winter and spring, and that's because we have less cloud, which causes more radiative cooling overnight, and that can allow those overnight temperatures to drop while the daytime temperatures get higher. During El Niño, we also typically see fewer thunderstorms in Australia, but a higher proportion of severe storms, and when those severe thunderstorms do occur, there's an increased risk of damaging winds and large hail, and a slightly reduced risk of heavy rain. With the above average daytime temperatures and below average rain, we also typically see an increased fire danger risk over parts of the country, especially in southeastern Australia. And the monsoon, or the northern Australian wet season, is often delayed when El Niño is in place, and we do typically see a reduced chance of tropical cyclone activity in the Australian region when El Niño is occurring. The impacts of a positive Indian Ocean dipole are broadly similar to El Niño, with a reduced chance of rainfall for large areas of the country, especially in western, central and southern Australia. And this brings an increased chance of drought and flash drought, and also a reduced chance of flooding. Daytime temperatures are typically warmer than average, but once again, those overnight clear skies increase the chance of frost, mainly during winter and early spring. And we also see an increased fire danger risk in some parts of the country when a positive Indian Ocean dipole is in place. Now let's take a closer look at what to expect around Australia during the next 3 months. Most forecast models suggest that the El Niño to the east of Australia will continue to gain strength over the next few months, and it may not peak until early next year. On the other side of Australia, the Indian Ocean dipole is expected to maintain its strength through October and November, but it should break down quite quickly as we move into the start of summer, and that's the typical life cycle of an Indian Ocean dipole event. The combination of these two climate drivers increases the chance that large areas of Australia will see unusually warm and dry weather over the next few months. These maps show the likelihood of exceeding the mean rainfall and mean daytime temperatures over Australia during each of the next 3 months. First, we can see November. Most of the country is expected to be drier than usual and warmer than usual. Although as we move into December, there is a bit of a signal of near or slightly above average rainfall over parts of New South Wales, southern Queensland and eastern Victoria, and a suppression of those daytime temperatures. This is because there's an expectation that we'll see some unusually warm ocean temperatures developing in the Tasman Sea, and that can increase evaporation into the atmosphere, which can help to fuel rainfall in those parts of the country. January though, most of Australia once again expected to see near or below average rainfall and near or above average daytime temperatures. So in summary, both El Niño and a positive Indian Ocean dipole are in place, and these climate drivers are expected to strengthen in the coming weeks. This increases the likelihood of above average daytime temperatures and below average rain in the coming months, which reduces the risk of flooding. These climate drivers also promote more favourable weather for harvest operations and some agricultural events like sales meets and expos.